Right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here to talk about insurance and insurance tech and all that's happening around it. And we brought some of the best and the brightest to talk just about that and how technology is actually intersecting in this particular industry and how it's playing a role into the future of insurance, whether that be on the business side, that be on the personal side, or in various parts of our lives as well. So tons to talk about today, but before we get started, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, click that big red subscribe button down there to tune in every day, all day, to all episodes of VC TV, as we have outstanding guests from around the world who join us on various topics, industries, and technologies around the world to talk and share with you the latest and greatest on happening in all of these areas. And also, if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out. We'd love to find the right spot for you and also the panel for you to join as well. And entrepreneurs, there is a virtual stage here at VCTV for you to speak on as well. It's not just about investors, it's also about you. For you to get up on and also share with us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback from us, build great relationships with each and every one of us, and get exposure to our live audience. What's better than that? Especially now as we come towards the end of the year, looking towards the next year ahead. It's a great opportunity. Do reach out to the team and or myself. Love to find the right spot for you. And a big thank you to the LA Token team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We're joined by two outstanding guests. I'm so excited to be on today's panel with them. Brett, first and foremost, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Sure. So Brett Noyes, founder and director of Unventures. We run an early stage syndicate primarily focused on seed to Series A companies. We have about 500 VCs and early stage investors that we work with in our network. And we send out companies on a weekly basis that we've vetted and fit our profile, primarily looking at the areas of fintech, SMB automation, future of work, and regulatory and data compliance. And insurance tech kind of falls under our fintech bubble, and we've seen quite a few insurance tech companies in the last year plus the companies we work with in our incubation program.
Awesome. And you guys do a lot on your incubation program as well. So those entrepreneurs who are listening, I mean, Brett has got double duty, and so does Telly, as she'll mention to us here in a minute. So if you're looking to get into a program to work with a great set of investors, also advisors, and that have tons of industry expertise, you got one here and one who's about to tell her story here in just a moment as well. So definitely make sure you reach out to today's investors, add context, and I'm sure they would love to have further conversations. Thank you, Brett. Telly, to you. Welcome back. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm Telly Ono. I live in St. Kitts and Nevis specifically. And I have a multi-sector background. So let me start. I'm a co-founder for ProHouse Labs, which is a fintech incubator in the US. We have within our portfolio a number of Insuretech startups. Some are still in stealth mode, so I can't really speak too much about them. Then I'm also a co-founder of Beyond Capital Markets. Beyond Capital Markets is a digital asset management firm, and we also a digital financial market infrastructure firm. So within that context, and also through ProHouse Labs, we have one of our startups called Alt School, which is the first tech school for alternative and digital finance for professionals. And in that, we have a number of programs for around digital financial market infrastructure. And within that infrastructure layer, you obviously have Insuretech playing a very big and significant part of it. We partnered with Middlesex University and Informa, and we have, I guess, the first postgraduate level programs, postgraduate certificate level programs in digital financial market infrastructure, which helps you deliver embedded finance, and of course, in digital financial market infrastructure, climate finance, DFMI climate finance. So the new buzzword is DFMI, which covers both centralized and decentralized concepts, all in an infrastructure layer that's connected. And the program really covers how you can leverage the DFMI infrastructure and manage it to drive embedded finance, to drive climate finance. And now that, you know, your government changed or is in that process of changing, climate is a big one. And Insuretech does play a big part in both embedded as well as climate finance as well. So I'm excited to be here. I remember when I started getting into Insuretech, my co-founder and I, we actually were part of the FinTech Circle book. The first one they launched on insurance and fintech, and we're the only ones that wrote on um, the value chain and blockchain in Insuretech. So that was like 2017 when things were still early. So, so yeah, it's funny that we didn't roll out that portfolio company just yet. But anyway, all things in good time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both, and excited to have you here. And just want to dive right in. I mean, Insuretech, Telly, you called it out, and climate's a very big part of it. And we're going to be talking more about climate later in the week as we get into our impact investing panel here in just a few days. But insurance tech, where do we even begin? I mean, what is currently happening in this space? And about 5 years ago, we were talking about IoT, Internet of Things, playing a role into insurance and helping to evolve insurance, but it wasn't yet about the data. It was more about the devices. Fast forward, now we've got things like decentralized finance, Telly, to your point. We've got multiple industries like climate and others that all play a role into this. And we've got this enormous pool of data that people are finally utilizing. What is the current state of insurance and insurance tech for both of you? And Brett, we'll start with you, and then Telly will come back.
Sure. That's a big broad question, right? So I can only speak to kind of like the stuff that we're seeing, right? And we don't necessarily, focus 100% on insurance tech, but a lot of what I'm seeing is kind of it's almost like laggard. Like we went through this fintech kind of boom, and and that was really exciting, and there was very hopeful about how it's going to change the world, and in some ways I think it has, and there's been a massive move towards digitization of everything. And it seems like insurance tech really lagged. And I remember, similar to Telly, in 2017, we were like ramping up to like, hey, do we run a full-on insurance tech program? Do we go all in on this? And it was just early. Like it is like, and I feel like we're just starting to get into the point where innovation and some of the stuff is trickling into insurance. So it's just been kind of slow. So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing this year, in a lot of ways, is just really incremental. Just digitization, augmentation of tasks and process. And quite honestly, like a lot of it's just boring, so it's like, it's not sexy. But whereas like there's a lot of, that's the bulk of what I'm kind of seeing. But the other part of it is you see stuff where people are applying AI and different, like using different aspects of technology. So the claim process can be automated so that, a claim adjuster doesn't have to come out. I feel like there's been a lot of talk about the use of drones. I haven't personally seen any of the startups that haven't trickled, across our desk, but I think there's like a lot of opportunity. And I think that the entrepreneurs, largely people are thinking about it very incrementally. And I would love to see someone think about like really just disrupting the whole space. So I'll hand it over to Telly to kind of talk more about her experience and what she's seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, Telly.
Yeah, I agree. What you're seeing in the space of insurance traditionally, it's really digital transformation. They're just laggards. They're just adding on technology into a lot of their processes and claims. Where we saw a lot of traction happen, I think maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, is in the area of car insurance and being able to then have that mishmash of leveraging the data you get from, IoT that's captured through the sensors, and then adding AI, incorporating it with your dash cam and stuff. So that part of Insuretech has really taken off. Obviously, there are attendant issues with the hardware devices. Once you go in with hardware devices, you're really thinking about cybersecurity issues and people being able to hack into their vehicles and stuff. But holistically, when you layer that and you incorporate payments in it, again, embedded, incorporate payments in it, then, it's just, in terms of claims can be done much faster. within 24 hours, all the evidence is there. And if you now add the layer of blockchain to, okay, fine, I take the image on my dash cam, it's logged onto the ledger, it's attested onto the ledger, everything is there. All that evidence is there for the claims adjuster to say, okay, well, it's a clear-cut case. I can issue a refund. So that's really happened in the automobile industry. Where we're starting to see, and I'm looking at, it's still early, but there are some interesting models when you're looking at DeFi, and DeFi as it applies to insurance, where from it ranges from creating pools, again, DeFi with the pools and investment. People forget that insurance companies are one of the most profitable, you'd say, of the financial sector. They're liquid like crazy. So, you know, adding that level of money market model as you're seeing in DeFi is really significant. Then you're seeing also other models of insurance being applied to Insuretech. For instance, in the Netherlands, you have a lot of mutual type risk pooling, risk sharing type of models that you're now seeing now being applied for Insuretech. In other markets, Islamic finance is fantastic because their models really help with the innovation. So you're starting to see some innovation in Insuretech, which you can't really call it insurance anymore. You're more calling it more risk sharing, a different type of risk sharing, mutual risk sharing. So we are starting to see some early innovations in Insuretech. I think more can be done when you start to layer on additional technologies along the line. Then I think that's where you unlock the value. Specifically when it comes to climate finance, I'm saying the space is so open for Insuretech because if you're looking at the creation of new insurance, index insurance, parametric insurance, that is like, amazing. So we're already seeing a company out of the UK that does flood risk insurance. It is an index parametric insurance. Also, microinsurance can definitely leverage some of these new technologies as well. In this area of logistics, supply chains, fleet management. I mean, come on, when you're moving your goods in the maritime industry,
Hmm.
requires, it has so much paper trail and so on. So when you layer on blockchain technology as well as some other technologies as well with payments, and you're adding on, say, stable coins and those additional things, you're really disrupting the space. So for the most part, I think some of the players in the insurance industry are still very calm, but you're starting to see a lot more partnerships between the traditional firms as well as like the insurtech startups that are coming up. So this
Hmm.
is starting to kind of, they're starting to move into a more innovative and trying to do things differently, things that
Hmm.
are really new, and they're open about it because it unlocks a lot of value. Key area that I'm interested in is cyber risk insurance,
Hmm.
which is starting to take a hold and grow.
Well, and it's going to be an important topic. I mean, if as we are starting to live our lives more digitally, but also more connected, I want to add that this time, and that cyber insurance is going to be necessary because if everything's driven by data, everything's done digitally, there has to be an insurance or should be an insurance in some way to protect against pieces of that. And as we start to move our currency and everything we do online digitally, again, absolutely reason to have that as there. So real quick, Brett, I've got a comment for you in just a moment. I want to make sure Gary gets in here as well. Welcome, Gary, and also just a quick, just general stance. What are you seeing happening in insurance tech today? We've talked a lot about finance and how insurance is playing a role in the finance space, a little bit around agriculture and drones, and then as Telly just mentioned, around cyber and the idea of our digital lives in all areas and aspects of what we're going to be doing. And I want to come back on that too in a minute, Telly. But Gary, to you, what are you currently seeing in terms of insurance and insurance tech?
Well, I mean, the situation is look at machine learning, for claims processing. The RPA, look at when you go in and file for insurance. I literally just did it myself 2 weeks ago. I wanted a policy. And, normally if you get risk policy, business risk policies, it takes a long time. They go through an entire process where they bid it out. I got it back in 60 seconds. And I mean, I was astounded that I got it. And I did it through Geico, right? And I'm not trying to plug Geico. I'm just saying it was unbelievable. So look at the IoT, being able to use IoT to be able to monitor for risk management. Look at predictive analytics to look at trends. And the other thing, Kyle, they're using social media, just so we all know today, they're actually training AI on social media to look for fraud detection. So, you're out there and you say that you've got a problem with a work injury, and they go down through and they check your LinkedIn profile, TikTok, Facebook, and they see that that's not the case, it comes back, right? So it's now they engage with it. So we got to be, these are some of the things, the good, bad, and the ugly, but that's the way it is. So if we look at chatbots, right, for going in and trying to figure out what's happening with an insurance, whether it's health insurance, does my policy cover that? I mean, so it's exciting times with the digital transformation, but you got to be careful what you ask for. So it's not the days when you could, go out and say that you got a bad back or a leg or something like that, start working out, and then and not worry that somebody's going to see you. They don't drive around with cars anymore. They just check your social media.
Yeah, and that plays back into the role of data. That's a great, and now going into so let's actually switch back to cyber, and then I want to come back to finance. But on that note, I mean, Telly, cyber insurance. I mean, how does this play a role? I mean, if what Gary just said, you can see my social media or our social media, and based on that make determinations. Does cyber insurance protect against that, or is it more against if my vehicle gets hacked, for instance? Talk to us a little bit more about the cyber insurance.
Well, I think it really depends on who's designing the insurance model and what factors they're factoring in. If they're actually going to be incorporating social media data into it, then they'll have to actually come up with a mechanism to cover that. But then again, some social media data could be subjective because you have people who like to project their online personas are actually quite different from, their other personas. So you have to have more than one data point. But I take it because social media data would be more real time. And so definitely it does clue you in. But obviously, if you have programmed the AI to kind of pick up some anomalies, then it will actually pick up that, okay, well, this person isn't really who the person is. And if you add additional data points like psychometric tools, psychometric analysis, then you're able to really detect if that person is who they say they are. Adding things again like facial recognition as well could actually clue into some emotive data points that may not necessarily capture in the social media. So I don't think it's just one data point source that you definitely will use to craft something like a cyber insurance product. So we are starting to see like companies coming out with cyber projects and stuff like that. Obviously, it's still very early. They haven't really factored in all the different type of cyber challenges. They probably factor in, if you're looking at it from a digital asset perspective, they probably want to cover the wallet, because while blockchain is really secure, the wallets really aren't, So if you have even a non-custodial wallet, I've started to see some coverage for that coming out through a startup. It's something to watch and see how best they underwrite it. So that we're seeing coverage in different aspects of cyber, from hacking, from even leveraging threat intelligence, as Gary would have pointed out. the challenge you have with cyber, especially if you're looking at it from a business perspective, for B2B, a lot of it also centers around your employees and access and control of the employees, because that's where most of the risks come in, you know.
Mhm.
So I've seen a company covering that aspect. I mentioned before, one of the interesting ones that I'm looking at is EtherSync.
Ether. Mhm.
Ether. Well, it's not Ether itself. I think it's Ether Risk. Yeah,
Mm.
with a SC. Etherist is interesting for me because, I'm infrastructure focused. It's really where everything is kind of leading to. And Etherist is decentralized, but they're providing a platform where other
Mm.
people can actually create their own decentralized applications, almost like widgets, and incorporate them into their products. But it's a crypto, yes, that's it. Crypto wallet or flight delay. Although right now, when it comes to flights, I mean, that was the thing then. But for
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
if you apply it to climate, hurricane protection,
Mhm.
volcano protection, there's so many things you can create. So platforms that allow, or infrastructure that allow you to create more solutions, I think are really a big win for me,
Mhm. Mhm.
in term from an even an investment standpoint, because you can create a number of things.
Mhm.
We're also seeing some insurance platforms that come up that create, again, as an investment. When you look at insurance as an investment product, you have a lot of insurance linked products
Right.
that in the traditional finance, these are securities. And now, if you now add digital assets to them, you can tokenize a whole bunch of, tradable insurance swaps and unlock
Mhm.
liquidity that way. So I think there's a lot going there. And yeah, I think, yeah, that's it for me right now. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot more. We're just scratching the surface when it comes to cybersecurity,
Well,
cyber risk solutions.
yeah, well, you mean cybersecurity. I mean, we talked about this last week on VCTV, and I mean, unfortunately, we had to stop the episode because we could have talked about it for 3 hours. It's such an enormous topic. I mean, this is something that's been around for a long time, something all of us have probably focused or touched on in some point over the past 2 decades, but now come full circle, it's a requirement. It's not so much as it used to be. For many, it was second tier. Now it's top tier. It's the priority going into building or thinking about anything you do as well. And thank you, Telly. Brett, I want to come over to you real quick. Talk to us a little bit more about how cybersecurity, insurance, and then data play a role all together. I know there's a little bit of experience you have there as well.
Yeah, it's just one of the, I think the emerging areas, and Telly was talking about this as well, is just that like all startups to large corporations are holding a lot of very sensitive customer data. And I think over time, it's the companies are going to be responsible. They're going to be held liable more so than they already have. And I don't think that in the kind of the startup ecosystem, people are necessarily worried about that, right? Because oftentimes when you're an early stage company, right, you're just trying to keep the lights on and get growth and all these other things, and you kind of forget about these risks. I think that over time these type of products are going to be mandated, hopefully, or but right now it's really early. We've looked at very few companies in the space. I've looked at one that I really enjoyed, but my partners really just didn't see that this was a big market, and I disagree with that, right? I don't know that maybe it wasn't the right company, but I think that cyber risk is a very large growing area, right? And if you're thinking it from the venture standpoint, like it's something we need to look at and say maybe the market's small today, but
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be huge, right? So that my bet would be that this problem is not going to get smaller; it's going to get bigger, and we've got to figure out who are going to be the players that can really put out top tier products and services for the people that are needed at an affordable price where it's not like crushes your crushes your startup, right? That's the ecosystem I live in, right? I have no hard feelings if they have an enterprise product and that's expensive, but I hope that people are thinking about building these type of products and services for the early stage companies.
Right. Well, now more than ever, too. I mean, again, I keep saying it, but we're living our lives more digitally than ever, and this comes on a tailwind of from Gary as well. I mean, it has to be included. If we look at the next 10 years and some of the industries that are going to be leading that and how we're going to be living our lives. I mean, right now we're doing more e-commerce transactions, more more online shopping than we ever have in all varieties, right? Not just the one-off gifts, not just the ones and twosies, but everything we do, as we even talked about pre-show, everything we do. If there's not security thought about in there, every bit of your transaction, your historical, your financial records open. We now look at how we are keeping ourselves monitoring on a health perspective. Again, looking at the next 10 years, when you get into areas like genomics, you get into area like the future of health and med tech, you get into things like CRISPR and all of this stuff. Again, we've talked about these buzzwords in industries that has to be protected. When you get our homes more intelligent, you have to protect that. Every single bit of our lives has to have some idea of insurance or thought and protection around that data, because while data is so valuable, it still is such an important part of our lives. And I thank you both, Brett and Telly. Gary, to you, anything else to add on to this around where data and all of this plays a role?
Well, I mean, the situation, Kyle, I don't want to steal the thunder for the next show, but my next article in Forbes is on cybersecurity and quantum computing. So, I mean, we talk about all these things now, but when you look at superposition and qubits and the massive amount of data, things change. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't know if the term cybersecurity is going to exist in the future, but these are the kind of things we got to look at. I agree with the rest of the panelists that it's critically important to protect our information, but we're in an entirely new realm that's uncharted territory. And we're just at the beginning of that part. So as I've said several times, you know, there could be two quantum computers facing off against each other, firing information back and, you know, predict where it's going to hit next, you know, plug the hole quickly. So it's going to be really interesting. I also think that, you know, during this, I mean, it's a challenge, right? So you've got all these hackers out there, all the people trying to steal your data. I know I personally had issues and had to hire a consultant who went out to the dark web and other places to find my stuff. And it's a challenge. So I think that, you know, the insurers have to be very forthright to figure out how to be able to change their policy premiums based on threats, right? It's not something that's constant where it's going to be a one-year policy. It's going to change. So I'm excited about it. I think in terms of medical insurance, now that we have the ability to garner so many different points of light and information, I mean, imagine it. You can go out to people's profiles everywhere, start to figure out how active they are, right? Analyze the words on their Facebook. You know, and they're doing it. They can do it today, right? It's not like it's the future on that, or LinkedIn, and start to figure out what the risk situations are. Analyze the picture on the page and look at how much overweight they are or underweight they are. And you can start saying, okay, I see that they just started running, right? And start making some decisions about how much you're going to charge somebody. So the world is fundamentally changed, right? And
so real quick, I want to interject. Yeah, I want to interject because you bring up a very good point that I want to touch on for a second. Sorry, Gary. But how does that change our lives? How will we actually, because what you're bringing up, a great point. I mean, if an AI, we'll just say, from an insurance agency can now look at photos and determine pricing based on my photos, how does that change how I may or may not live my life?
Well, I mean, situation, if it's a feedback loop and you instantly get something from your insurance company said, I just want to let you know, if you keep doing this, your premiums are going to start going up. I mean, we haven't been held accountable before, ever, right? You go to the doctor once a year and you say, oh, you're a little underweight or overweight or whatever, your sugar's up or whatever the deal. But now the situation, we're being held accountable. In a way, that's a good thing. But, you know, now tying that with the Internet of Things and all the devices you have on. And now, I mean, think about it, Fitbit, you know, and I don't want to say anything bad about Fitbit, but there's a lot of data they collect on me too, right? Because I have it on. And, you know, where's that data gone? I'm really curious. Just, you know, like Tile, right? I don't know if you use Tile, but I use these tiles for losing, well, you know, because I don't lose things. I'm worrying about all the data. I mean, seriously, right?
Right.
How much?
They
'Cause
know
you
where
start
you've
to
been.
triangulate.
They know where
all
you've
the
been.
data.
Yeah. Well,
And then
it does.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it does promote a little bit of a lifestyle change, because I guess before, in most industries, not all, in some, you've been put into a tier bucket, right? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, this is your price point. And now, we might go to that other side of the extreme of, you're getting thrown individually, but maybe there's a middle ground where, day by day, we've talked about this on the finance side of, you mentioned this actually last time in our fintech panel last week here on VCTV, Gary, about the idea of daily payments, right? So after you finish a day's worth of work, you're 9 to 5, you actually get that
Absolutely.
paycheck for that day. Insurance itself could work the same, where daily or weekly, right, on a more frequent basis, your insurance can change. Now, that can be good. That can also be very bad. It can be very bad. Thank you,
Very
Brett. It can
discriminatory
be
as well.
very bad.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. Today, I had a meeting with one of the largest insurers in the United States. So their head of innovation, and he told me that this new way that they're doing their insurance is they're actually monitoring your car. They put a device in your car, and they can tell if you're speeding or not, and they modify insurance like on a daily basis, right? They can actually aggregate what the amount that they should charge you, because they got a device in your car to monitor what you're doing. Are you stopping fast? Are you going too fast? Where are you driving, right? Because you got GPS coordinates. I mean, think about it. So it's going to happen, Kyle. This is not if, it's going to happen. It's a matter of when.
You're absolutely right. And that's, I think, what gets me so excited about everything we talked about here on VCTV every single day. And I'm so appreciative of all three of you, and also just the entire audience, is this stuff is happening. We're not talking about it happening in 10 years. We look towards what's coming so we can all be prepared, but this stuff is happening. I mean, real-time payments, to your point, and Telly's shaking her head, Brett is too, everyone is, because we all talk about this. It's happening. This stuff is coming in the next few months, if not sooner, or already here. You're absolutely right. Brett, I've left you in the dust for a few minutes. Anything to add on this? I mean, this is a great point of this idea of rapid change and everything.
Well, I'll throw out a kind of a different, kind of broader idea here that kind of came, this sparked. As we went into the social media era, like, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what it would become. And I think in a lot of ways it's become really negative. So as we think about insurance, and we're talking about this future idea of like tracking everything in like real time, like, I think we should also be thinking about what is the downside of this? Like, how are we discriminating people? How are we leaving people out? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this data inclusive? Is it, like, or do we ultimately say, okay, like, I mean, there's aspects of just me being a short man that it's like, I'm not going to have the same health level as some 6-foot person. Am I still able to get insurance, or is my insurance?
Right.
So things like this, where genetics and other things play in, like, am I the optimal health level for, I'm happy to give for them to say, hey, Brett, like, I go to my doctor and they give me some feedback and I say, okay, I'll work on that. But I don't want to be left out of insurance products because of the data, right? So I think we need to really be thinking about how is this going to, we're talking about how it's going to be better. And I think there's a lot of upside, but we should also be thinking about, now that we've been into the digital era long enough to say, hey, these products oftentimes end up becoming negative against society. How do we get ahead of that? And how do we build better products and services that are, are profitable, but are also inclusive?
Right. Well, and also just put and Telly, I'm coming to you next on this in just a second, but I also want to say, and add a positive spin. I mean, insurance is not fun to talk about. Insurance is not a very exciting thing. It's okay if it's boring, but it's also not an exciting thing of like, oh my gosh, I want to go out and get it.
Like, something bad happens also.
Right. And it's like, no, it should be open of like, hey, this is the type of insurance for XYZ, and here's why and how you need it, how it can benefit you. And here is it's okay. Like, it's okay. And this is something we've talked about as well around financial inclusion. It's just stuff like that is always not always talked about or welcomed into. And insurance has the opportunity now to just, to your point, welcome, include in ways that it hasn't been before, where it's a top of mind and positive, and not such back of mind and negative. So sorry, Telly, go ahead on your side to anything to add.
Yeah, that's fine. And just coming on to what Brett's saying in terms of the positive versus the negative, I think too, what Insuretech does is really bring in a level of transparency where customers start to trust what's going on. A lot of people don't know what's going on in their policies. That's fine print. You know, so many people would have been paying for policies for a long time. Then when something happens, they say, oh, that person died in a car accident. We only insure, you know, our flight. If it was a plane crash, fine. So those are the type of things that a lot of people suffer, a lot of humanity have suffered over the years. So I think Insuretech really simplifies the process, makes it simple, and in fact, it innovates to the point where it doesn't really look like an insurance product again. So there are some tensions there when you have a new policy or it's not even a policy, but it is an insurance product, just not called insurance by our standards and by regulations, but it is an insurance product that can really solve people's problems and really protect them. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about health. Traditional health insurance is like, you know, it's crazy, it's expensive. If you're looking at the US alone, it's going up, you know,
Mhm.
and it's the policymakers are still trying to figure out how to simplify it. And it's not a very easy thing to simplify. And there lies a problem where you have certain people in society that get excluded from that type of insurance model. So we have to come up with different, newer models that kind of include people. This is why I do like the TACAFO Islamic finance type model, because it's not your traditional insurance per se. It is an insurance, but it's not like a risk transfer. It's a risk sharing, a risk
Mhm.
pooling, a risk sharing. It's more, you know, it's more harmonious where everybody in the mutual. So you can actually innovate business models from that premise to do new and different things that are not necessarily quote unquote called insurance by the laws, you know, but they are insurance products.
Mhm. Absolutely. Gary, anything else to add? And thank you, Telly. And I want to come actually in terms of anything else to add, but then also where are the opportunities? Where should people be focusing on this next wave of new insurance products as well? And I think we've touched on a few of them. Again, that instant or real time, the inclusion opportunities, education, and just making it more affordable in some ways. But just in general, where are you seeing areas of opportunity in the insurance space that people should be focusing on?
You mean in terms of the tech or in the insurance space? In terms of tech or?
Tech, yeah.
I
Where
mean,
are
the
opportunities
situation,
tech for insurance to
so,
meet?
I mean, it's all about the data, right? So
Mhm.
there's massive amounts of data that can be collected from all different kinds of sources. The persons that can make decisions, remember the key for AI is the more data out there, the better the decisions that are made. So think about the kind of things. So we're going to have this integrated world where all the different, where your health insurance, you know, all the insurances are going to start to combine together and they're going to start making some interesting decisions. So the startups that are able to analyze that data and provide some predictive models, the companies that have devices that can go in a car, that can be worn, that can help make the price of insurance. I mean, if the price of insurance would drop in half because you could do some of the right things, it would be worth it. We just don't know what to do, right? And we're not guided through the process. But I mean, look at it not as a bad thing, but look at it as a coach, right? So it's your health coach, it's your driving coach. I think that's a real opportunity. And the coach today, I mean, most people talk about smarter, intelligent assistants, but that's what it would be. This is an entirely new world that that is out there that could be interesting. So
Mhm.
look at that. I think from my standpoint, there's a lot of massive amount of data. The companies that can analyze it and provide some real predictive analysis based on that, and then to go down through. It's a greenfield opportunity right now. It's data driven greenfield and it's growing. So it's ripe.
Absolutely. Brett, to you, any other areas of opportunity or anything you'd like to add on to Gary's comment?
Sure. I mean, well, I'll get Gary's comments right on the data side, so I'll go a different direction. Kind of as an example, one of the companies we worked with in one of our cohorts was building a risk sharing product for farmers in emerging markets. They combine satellite data with the blockchain. They're a consensus company now. It's stuff like that where another company that's kind of on the lower tech is called Flurry, and they're just making using people that are in the United States the ability to buy insurance policies for people in emerging markets, focused primarily on Africa right now. So I think that there's some big opportunities in the emerging markets, or the areas that I would tell people to take a look at and see what are the different opportunities to kind of marry the two different ideas. So yeah, I think those are kind of the areas I'm interested in personally. So, but there are limited list ideas and areas to be innovated in this space.
Absolutely. Telly, thank you, Brett. Telly, anything else to add, and any other areas of opportunity?
Wow, Brett hit the nail on the head. In traditional things like right now, food security is so important, especially after the lockdown. And emerging markets have that. They've got agriculture. So when you really apply Insuretech to that, creating new, especially index insurance or parametric insurance, whatever you call it's a type of, and it could be a micro insurance. That's a beautiful thing of it. You can now have farmers insure their crops and have a little bit more reliability to the entire process. So I'm looking forward to a lot more products like that. It also mitigates against hurricanes and all those climate risks. So once you can assess risk, deliver insurance real time to the customers, that's great. So be it any aspect of climate risk, so I think for me, that area of climate, whether it's to mitigate, to adapt, to build resilience as well, that's pure impact. It impacts communities, it impacts ecosystems, it impacts even industries, So I think that's a really big area. And you can add on things like, I think someone mentioned about drones. There is a startup that's starting to do something minimal with drones called Flock. They actually assess drone risk itself. But now when you think about climate is all about collecting data, and data is variable. There are some data you actually do need to use drones to collect that type of data. Like if you're in a volcano, you can't go by yourself. You need to send a drone in there to pick up, different variables as well. So, yeah, it's going to be very exciting. I'm really excited about digital climate finance. It will open doors, not just in insurance, but in other areas. Then lastly, obviously, one of my favorites is really mass adoption. Where I see insurance going and these Insuretech models going is in an embedded finance model, embedded insurance, where normal tech companies can actually innovate their business models and incorporate an insurance product in there. That increases your valuation like no man's business. You're already starting to see a parallel, with say in edtech startups, adding things like ISAs. That's an insurance product. No, that's a fintech product. But if you now add insurance, that just adds, it generates more revenue and unlocks more value. So I think that's the way to go.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm excited about where this world of insurance is going. Thank you to the three of you. I hope our audience is also as excited as I am. And I've only had one cup of coffee, which is, just to show really how excited I am. Want to come to each of you for any closing comments, and then of course where everyone can find you online to continue the conversation. There's so much more to be had here, and want to give everyone that chance to continue that conversation. So Gary, let's start it with you. Any closing thoughts about insurance technology?
So just to show you how excited I am.
I mean, it's good. It's good. We need to make some VCTV coffee. I think that's the next product. We're gonna have the VCTV branded coffee. Perfect. It's perfect.
Anyhow,
where can everyone find you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great time. There's a lot of data out there. Insurers are looking at new ways to innovate. Obviously, the chatbots, quantum computing, new ways of being able to do insurance is right. So look at the technologies. It's coming. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn. I've got a show. You can check it out. GSD Presents. It happens every week. Love to hear from you. We're looking for companies all over the world. They're looking to make a dent in the universe, primarily AI companies that want to go global. And love to hear from each and every one of you. You can reach me through VCTV.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary. Telly, to you, any closing thoughts, anything else to add? And of course, where can everyone find you and the outstanding programs that you have put together with your team as well to continue the conversation?
Well, I've said it all. Future of finance is quite embedded and also heavily focused around climate. If you want to learn more about that, we have current enrollments for our programs. They kick off in January and February. So it's digital financial market infrastructure management, DFMI management, and DFMI climate management. You can find it on AltSchool. That's ALTSSCHOOL.co. So not .com, .co. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. I think I'm TV Onu. And on Twitter, I'm Teval, Teval. And you can find me on VCTV. To startups, it's really a great space. You really need to start looking at the trends and go beyond digital transformation to kind of redefining and reach challenging things and creating new products. I think that's where we need to be. We're not just digitizing an already bad solution. That doesn't make sense. Yep. And that's it for me. Looking forward to connecting. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Telly. Brett, last but not least, closing thoughts. Where can we find you in those programs as well?
Sure. Well, kind of a last little quick story here. So about 10 years ago, a friend of mine pitched me the idea of drone insurance, and myself and everyone laughed at him. He tried to get it off the ground. Insurance products aren't easy to launch. So he ended up abandoning that idea. I'd say probably 4 or 5 years ago in casual conversation, I mentioned this to some colleagues at Draper Nexus, and they said, quit your job and pursue that, right? So things change, right? So think about the big ideas, the opportunities that don't quite exist today. And if people laugh at you and you're not a total nut job, like go pursue it and figure out how to make it happen. So just pursue the big ideas, and you kind of see where the world's going and go pursue that would be my advice. Brett Noyce, you can find me at brnoyce@unventures.co. Same Brett Noyce at LinkedIn, or hit me up on Telegram, Brett Noyce as well. And as always, thanks, Kyle, and thanks to the LA Token team for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brett, Telly, Gary. Thank you all so much for sharing the thoughts and insights. To you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do make sure to reach out to each and every one of our investors today. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Telly. And make sure you add context on that reach out, whether you want to talk more about insurance, some of the intersecting technologies, and or the programs and funds that they offer as well. Thank you, Brett. They would all love to hear from you. And also, if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you to join Brett, Telly, and Gary on a similar panel like this or others as well. And entrepreneurs, we've spoken about some great opportunities today, but there's also an opportunity for you, and that's to join our virtual stage here at VCTV to share your company, product, or service with each and every one of us as investors and founders focus on your area to get real-time feedback, build relationships, and get exposure to our entire live audience. Do reach out again to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. That being said, a big thank you to the LA Token team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day and bringing us all together to speak about topics like we did today here around insurance and others up to come here just a little bit more on VCTV. With that being said, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find myself at Kyle Ellicott on all social media, along with all of our investors today. We're available 24/7, 365, and looking forward to continuing the conversation with each and every one of you. With that, we'll be back here with a little bit more VCTV later today.